Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Spotlight on More TV Network. I'm your host, Colette Martin. Today, we're going to be talking to a seasoned guest, filmmaker, actor, producer, and I'll let him tell you the rest. But let's welcome in Mr. Andre Joseph. Who should be joining us shortly. Hello, Mr. Andre. How are you?
Good. How you doing today, Colette?
I'm doing well, thank you. Hailing all the way from New York, we have Mr. Joseph. Yay, yay, yay. Seasoned guest. But thank you for coming on the Spotlight on More TV Network. I know it's late there because it's late here. But yeah, so I won't hold you up. But yeah, just tell us, our viewers and listeners, a little bit about who Andre Joseph is.
Well, I was born and raised in Staten Island, New York. I pretty much grew up there, went to high school there, and I've been interested in making movies ever since I was about 10 or 12 years old. Just first it started out with me and my cousins just writing little scripts based on movies that we saw. We usually would play charades in my grandmother's place. And we got to a point where we're like, well, we want to film this stuff. We want to put it up on video. So my uncle, who was living with my grandmother at the time, he had just gotten one of those old VHS cameras, and we wanted to borrow it, but of course we're too young to, obviously play with it, and he was afraid we were going to break it. But we still kept writing stuff up until we were on a summer vacation in Hilton Head Island with my mom and my uncle, and basically we made some friends on that vacation, and my mom had just gotten a camera, so I asked her if she could let us use it. So she said, okay, as long as it's, nothing crazy. And we did this little detective story, and, and I had fun doing it, and then next thing you know, it was every once in a while getting my friends and my cousins together to film little movies that we were making. But, my parents didn't think I was serious about it. So they actually had me go to New York Film Academy for a summer program to show me how you really do it. And I think I came out of it feeling like, I could actually really do this for real. Like, now you just gave me more skills to kind of build off of. And then it was just studying it through high school, college, and then eventually starting my career when I was done with college.
Okay, yeah, that's very unique because I know like taking pictures with my cousins and us goofing around with my sister. No, our parents didn't think it was serious and neither did we. So
Right.
to actually hear someone takes that, that passion, that love and create something as magnificent and all the accolades that you have is actually very unique and interesting. So thank you for that. Oh my gosh, I could never imagine turning that into an actual career. But that's the beauty of every single person because we're all designed very unique. So that's very good. Why do you, or what do you think was actually the deciding factor? Was it yourself, someone else, or just once again the passion for creating something that you love and others love to actually make it into a career?
I can't really think of it as like one particular moment for me. I think it was just like as a kid, it was always taking my toys and everything that I saw on TV, I would just reenact it, whether it was a cartoon that I watched or a movie that I saw on video or on cable. And, I was always feeling like I like telling stories. I even wrote short stories when I was at a school, in third and fourth grade, and I would share it with the class and share it with my teachers, and they'd be interested in the stuff that I was writing. So, I didn't know professionally what I was going to do at that time. Like, a lot of my dad, my uncle, they're all dentists and doctors, so they figured I was going to go into the medical field. But I think once I picked up that camera and I just started getting people together, it did become this obsession of like, I just want people to show up and be in my work and, put it out there and, be able to enjoy that I'm doing something that's the kind of movies that I want to see, not just what I'm seeing out in the theater or on television. And I think it really got to the point where, as my skills continued to build and the legitimacy of the work that I was doing was starting to take notice, I think then I thought, I think I had the ability and the talent to be able to make this into something. Now, of course, it's not easy to break into this business, but it's changed so much over time, now with streaming services and all these new platforms to be able to get distribution and show your work to a wider audience. I think that certainly changed the game in terms of saying, okay, this can be done. You can build your brand and find an audience. And the trick is just to understand the business side of it as best you can, as well as, the creative craftsmanship of making the film. And if you can master those two, then you can have something that will sustain you for the long term, and still be able to have the room to try other things. If you do have a day job and you can balance the two, it's very possible to do if you put the commitment to it.
And you bring up a good point as well, that it is not easy to get into your craft, your art. I know actors, I know producers, I know playwrights, and they struggled in the very beginning. They are successful now, but it took time. And you hear, just like I know people in the music industry, about how their agents or the music label takes advantage of them. Why did you want to create your own production company? Was it based on the same thing, like, they're getting too much of the cut and it should be coming to me because I'm doing all the work? Or how did that work out for you in this particular craft?
It's a little bit of that. I mean, sure, like I want to have that control of my work, but I think it just came natural to me because there really weren't a lot of people that I knew personally growing up that were doing the exact same thing. And if they did it for fun, but then they ultimately, settled with whatever day jobs that they can get, or the dream job that wasn't anything related to the industry, which was fine. But for me, it was always like putting the scripts together, getting the actors, usually whatever locations are available to me. I try to find them. And then once it's all done, I would end up editing, finding music to put to it. And I can never forget all these endless nights sometimes having to edit the movies myself, with the old, like taking the VHS deck and then put it on the other deck and then switching up the clips through two VHS cameras. I mean, that's as far back as I was in the beginning before, doing everything digitally. So I think it just, because I've been so used to doing it on my own, I just gradually got to that place where, when I did my first film Priceless, I did have to form an LLC to protect myself. And so I did that, and that became like the standard for everything else that I did in terms of self-producing my own work. And of course, eventually hiring people to help me with the tasks that I feel like I could trust in somebody else's hands, because I can't do it all, but have it where it's still like a foundation of saying, okay, this is what I got going on. Everybody will have their 2 cents into what we're doing, but then ultimately I'll decide exactly where it's going to go and where it's going to be seen.
Okay. And that makes sense, because once again, it is you, and that's your baby, and that's what you want to work on. But you're being very modest right now. I've already told the viewers and listeners, I'm like, okay, you have an accomplished guest today. Producer, film writer, actor. So we're going to dive into all those three pieces, because normally you have the like my friend, he does the producing, he won't do the acting.
Right.
Then you have my other friend, she does playwrights, but she's not going to do the acting or producing. Then you have my actor friends that just do acting, they don't get into producing. You do all of them. So we're going to take it apart, because they haven't seen your bio yet. I did, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at this. So you talked about, okay, how to get into the filming portion. So let's talk about the acting. What made you decide to get in front of the camera as opposed to being behind the camera?
Well, that was also another thing that kind of came natural to me because, again, I've grown up on like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Ghostbusters, and I wanted to like kind of be that one of those guys. I wanted to be on screen and sort of like take charge, and that was kind of like where I was in the beginning. And I was also doing a little bit of theater in school. I performed in some local plays in grammar school and a little bit in high school too. So I had that experience on me. And because I felt like I was the only one to be reliable in terms of being the person that was going to be making the story, usually it was playing roles that were close to the movies that I enjoyed. But as I got older, I became more selective about it. So there's some films like Priceless and Vendetta Games where those were roles I knew I wanted to do, that I felt I can bring something unique to it that I couldn't see other actors do. Whereas with my previous short film, Saxophonist, I don't play saxophone, and I wouldn't really be that good at this age to be able to do it convincingly. So let me find somebody that actually can play, and I can help them with the acting part. And that's what I did through my friend Bevan Lawrence, who was incredible in that film. And so, I'm even at that place now where I've even done some acting for other friends who are filmmakers and like small parts, supporting roles. And I'm just selective about it. So if I feel like it's something that resonates with me and I could say something, then I take it on. But if it's something that I feel like a better actor can be able to tackle and bring that reality to it, then I'm willing to give that chance to them.
Okay, so here's the devil's advocate question.
Yeah.
You are a filmmaker, producer. You're an actor. When you're acting, how hard is it for your staff or your employer to say, you know what, I've got to film him, and if this isn't right, because you're going to be critical. You're in front of the camera and you're acting, but at the same time, it's like, well, let me check and make sure you're doing it right. Has that been a battle for you, like to be really critical of, no, that doesn't look right. Let's do it again. Let's do it again. This is how it should be done.
In the beginning, yes. I know, like, because I acted in my very first film, there was definitely always the sense like, okay, I'm focusing on my performance and my actors, but then I also have to make sure like the crew knows exactly what they're doing, and I realized how difficult of a balancing act that was. And the biggest reason I had that issue was because I didn't have a solid assistant director on the set. Not until like halfway through the shoot, one of my friends who went to high school with me, his name is Albert Albanese. He came on as a producer, but when the original assistant director dropped out, he had to step up and really make sure things ran tight on set. So I even told him, look, if there are things that I'm not doing right, just tell me. I'm not going to take it personal. It's whatever we got to do to keep moving and to make sure we're getting the project done the right way. So he would tell me at times, and even my other friend Adam Chenoy, who would later AD some of my films, he would tell me, if I need to play something up a little bit more, if maybe I was compromising quite a bit. So at least I would have that one person there that wasn't going to be a yes person on the set. I feel like, you have a crew, they're going to take your direction, but you also have to have that other voice to kind of tell you, okay, I think you could probably touch it up a bit. And you don't feel like they're overstepping their boundaries because you're allowing them that permission to be critical of your work because they want to see you look good too. Since this is the one that you're taking a chance on and it's behind your back, like somebody like that on the set is very critical if you're going to take on both tasks.
Yeah, and it's a matter of trusting their opinion, because I would think if I'm an actor, that would be hard for me because it's like, okay, he's being a real today, trying to tell us this isn't right, this isn't right, this isn't right, and we're trying to do this scene. Yeah, that would be a lot of pressure. Did you have actors or actresses that felt that pressure, or did you have it open to where it's like, you know what, let's sit at the round table, let's talk this out, because this is what's going to happen?
Usually we talk it out way before we shoot. Like I'll do a rehearsal, like a table read with the actors, and then sometimes I would also just sit down with them, have a conversation about their roles, and if I'm in it, kind of like what the relationship is with the characters that we're playing, and so that way, we knew where to kind of separate the personal stuff with what happens on screen. Now, I'm not going to say that it's always been perfect. I've had those situations where I've had certain actors that have their egos and kind of become difficult, and then you just have to deal with it on a case by case basis. But usually it's just all about transparency with any actor that you work with, is kind of letting them know how things are going to play out, at the same time give them that flexibility and freedom to do their interpretation without micromanaging their performance, because I don't believe in making somebody come across robotic exactly the way you picture it. If somebody can bring their own spin, their own reality to a role, then you want to welcome that, because it just makes the story that much better when it's more realistic than something that's just more very stingent and doesn't feel natural for them.
And that's great for your personality because, not everybody can actually do that. They'll say they can,
Yeah.
but, the reality is they can't. And like you said, you were open to the fact that you didn't want just the yes people on set. This is the way Andre wants it. Yes, sir, we'll get it done. Well, no, if I'm not doing something right, you got to tell me.
Right.
Because a lot of people, like I said, they'll say they're transparent, once they come at you, it's like, you know what, this is my film, not yours. Just do your job. So, seriously. So, but that's great. And that speaks volumes of you as a person, as an actor as well. Now, here's the loaded question. If you had to compare yourself with another actor, who do you think would be comparable to you as like your favorite?
um in terms of like my performances,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
well, everybody tells me I always get the Denzel Washington comparison, because my grandmother, my mom always think that I look like him, and there's certain times in my acting where I've kind of showed a little bit of that shade. I think in terms of what I've done personally, though, I would say my style is more closer to the late Gregory Hines. That's somebody that I think, way before Will Smith, was somebody that had the charm, the personality, transcended race as an actor, because anything that he did outside of, say, Cotton Club, he could play anything that normally a white actor would do and still make it convincing. He could still get the girl, he could still be funny, he could still be heroic, and really come across as like a role model to look up to. So, I don't think he gets enough credit as an actor because we've lost him for so many years, but he certainly is one. Like when I watch him in a movie, I pay close attention, and I think I capture most of his mannerisms. I can't tap dance, but just in terms of like the way he comes across is what I try to gravitate to.
Yeah, and it's very different that you mentioned him. Number one, yeah, he was one of my favorites, and I think I cried when I heard he passed away.
Yeah.
I was like devastated. I was like, that Gregory Hines. Just a multi-talented man.
Oh
Just
my God. Yeah.
very unique on screen, and you didn't come across too many people like him. Not at all. And you just went straight to the top. Denzel Washington, so it just two very wonderful actors, that yes, they both are powerful and unique. And once again, that just speaks volumes of you as an actor. What about directors?
It's always different depending on the genre that I tackle. So, like, whenever I've done like more action, crime thriller type of movies, I tend to look at Michael Mann, who he did Miami Vice and Ali and Collateral. I love the way he shoots action scenes and how he tackles like personal lives of cops and criminals, and all the layers of, like, the gray areas that these people live in. So I tend to try to gravitate to him and his style.
Mhm.
But outside that, if I'm doing like a drama like The Saxophonist, or some of the other movies, I look at Spike Lee, I look at John Singleton, maybe even more so John Singleton, because I feel like he, for all the Boys in the Hood type movies that he did, there were a lot of the other films he made that showed he had more range as a filmmaker to tell other different types of stories and not just be boxed into that one particular genre. So, like when I think about my style and the way I go about making movies, I always think about him and a little bit of Spike too, because I mean I met Spike and I've grown up on his work. So trying to be, hard edged at times, but then also trying to show different sides of life, a different side of reality that normally doesn't get caught on screen.
Okay. Once again, good comparison. What do you? Well, let me back up for a second. Films. What films have you been an actor in for our viewers and
Uh,
listeners?
So my first movie was my first professional film was Priceless, and that I did back in 2007. So in that I played like a jewel thief trying to get back with his ex-girlfriend from high school, and he's on the run from the mob. So he's trying to like show that he's a
Oh,
changed man. And then there was Dishonorable Vendetta and its sequel Vendetta Games, where I played a undercover drug enforcement agent. My character is a family man. My partner is kind of a hothead with a lot of issues. And so we sort of have like the Lethal Weapon dynamic, but it's way different than those movies. And that character kind of goes through an interesting arc over the course of the two films. And then there was another short film that I did called Lightstream, where I play like an online radio host who, has like this big following. Nobody knows what he looks like, but then he ends up getting involved in the personal life of one of his listeners, and then that kind of like affects his state of mind, his life, the way he approaches his work. And that was like a little drama that I did a couple of years ago that I had a lot of fun making. So those are probably like the big ones that stand out, and then everything else was just stuff that I did with my friends and my cousins, like when I was in high school and in grammar school.
okay. So which one was your favorite?
Of all the roles,
Hmm.
that's a good question. I think Lightstream hasn't really been seen as much, but that's the one that stands out the most to me, because that was something that actually started as a character piece that I wrote for acting class. And I told my acting coach that was sort of a dream role that I wanted to play, was to play like a radio host of some kind. And so like I wrote this little thing out and then eventually expanded it into a short film. And that was fun because I had this really amazing actor, Reginald Barnes, who's really blown up recently. He was playing like my sidekick in the movie, and we were really like bouncing off each other. And I think he made me a better actor making that film. And I just think like I really invested myself in trying to look a little bit different than I normally do in other movies. I wasn't trying to be a tough guy, but more of a sensitive soul, but maybe too naive at points. So it was really like an interesting challenge. And trying to find the right beats for that character. It was definitely a different type of approach to an acting performance than anything that I had done previously.
Okay. So I know the friends that I have that are actors. Sometimes they like playing the roles that's closest to their personality. And then you have those roles that is nothing like their personality. Which ones do you cater to most that you like to do?
Um, I think for me, I always admire any actor like a Johnny Depp or a Sean Penn who can mold themselves into anything that they do.
Mhm.
When they can get lost into a character and you forget who they are, I think it's like the most incredible thing in the world. I think for me though, I wouldn't say like my skills are to the level of those guys. I mean, those are gods in my view. So I try to find stuff that really is like sort of an extension or over exaggeration of my personality. I never try to stretch myself into do something that's stereotypical. Like, you won't see me playing a thug, you won't see me play a drug addict or anything like that. And it's not because like I'm insecure about it. It's just I feel more comfortable in like something that, you know, I don't have to totally have to stretch myself to have to like get into those zones and have to go to extremes to make it as realistic as possible. I mean, I did play a dirty cop in a movie called Smokescreen for a friend of mine, Sean Buttmeyer, and that was actually a last minute replacement for another actor. So I took the approach of saying, well, I could act like one of these, you know, these difficult actors that I've ever had to deal with, and just have fun doing it. It's only like a 3-day job, and work with people that you like. And yeah, I mean, it was a different thing, but I enjoyed it for the most part. So it really depends on the role. Like I really want to go for like the dream roles that I wish I can play if Hollywood would give it to me. But you know, like I'm not going to trick myself so far as those guys. Those are the real professionals in my view.
Okay. All right. What about films? What types of films have you produced?
Most of my films have fallen into like sort of the action genre, especially with Disarmable Vendetta and Vendetta games. But I've also dipped into comedy. I did a movie called Tempted, which was about like a fraternity and this kid who has to do something kind of naughty in order to get into the fraternity, and that was a lot of fun to make. Um, and I'd say like the saxophonist and Priceless were more like personal dramas because they definitely came from a place of, you know, things in my personal life that I sort of injected into those characters, even if their situations are over exaggerated. There were things that I felt, you know, were themes in my life that I wanted to put on paper and put on screen. So, you know, with Priceless, you're dealing with a guy who's trying to show he could be a responsible man to his ex-girlfriend. And in the saxophonist, you have an artist who wants to be a great artist, a great jazz musician, but he's caught between his love life and his career and sort of the difficulty of which one do you sacrifice for your own happiness, and which is something that I know I've kind of dealt with for many years. So it always I mix around quite a bit with these type of movies, but I do want to tackle eventually horror and sci-fi if the right ideas come along and show that I could do those type of pictures as well.
Okay. You talked about, your childhood growing up as far as like creating films and making films. You have a lot of people who want to break off into this particular craft. And like I mentioned, between the actors that I know, the film writers, the playwriters, the producers, it's hard. Tyler Perry talks about how hard it is, out in their car, just living out of their car. What advice would you give them as far as trying to break off into this particular area?
Well, a couple of things. You definitely don't give up and don't get discouraged by what anybody tells you. If they tell you that you can't make it in the business, I think that's just baloney. Um, you should learn as much as possible, like read, study the greats, to watch these interviews with these famous actors and filmmakers and kind of learn their stories of what they've had to go through in their process. And I think basically on an individual basis, it's not just going out there and building your body of work and building your resume to get to higher levels of success, but you have to figure out what is your definition of success, because there are those in all those areas, writing, directing, acting, who think that if I get a big paycheck and I'm making something that Hollywood wants, then that's success. I have fame. And I don't think that's always the answer necessarily, because there are a lot of people who get there and are unsatisfied. They see the realities of it and they become unhappy. You know, they become unsatisfied with their situation when they become so micromanaged and controlled, and you're almost like devoid of your own personality. So I think really for anybody trying to break into the business, you know, obviously get a good lawyer, find a good agent and a manager that can push your career, but decide, you know, if you do have that fame, can you handle it responsibly enough that you can manage your success in a way where you're not going to overextend your finances and, you know, make compromises that are not good for your soul, even if it may be good for business. There's so many facets to what it takes to be a success. And I think it's really just having a determination and knowing what you want and trying to go at it as best and as hard as you can without any of that discouragement getting in the way of it.
Is it helpful to actually have some type of, if not all, schooling in this particular area? I mean, you have, like you said, specific colleges and universities that cater to, actors and film writers and et cetera, et cetera. Then you have those people who, well, I love acting and I just want to break off into acting and try and put together a portfolio. Is it best to have particular schooling behind you so you are more successful?
I definitely think so. I mean, even though we live in the age now with YouTube where it's easy to just go onto a tutorial and they show you everything that you need to do, and then you think you go out in the field and do it. All power to you if you can make that happen. But I definitely believe, like especially with the college I went to Emerson. I learned the foundation of what I needed in terms of making the movie, understanding lighting and composition and sound, and the entire process that goes along with having a really polished finished product. But I also think where it kind of fell short, and I think it's improved since then from certain students that I've spoken to there that go there now, it's just learning more about the business side of it, which I think is just as crucial. And it was something I didn't have enough of in college. Because I think a lot of people go out and they think just making their project or getting an acting job is just good enough. And really, if you don't know how to maneuver your way through all these negotiations and dealing with the unions and so forth, it becomes treacherous and you could end up in a bad deal that gets you nowhere or you just get ripped off. So I definitely believe that you have to have some kind of foundation through proper training, proper schooling, and then you can bend the rules a little bit once you get out on the field in whatever profession you get into. But you definitely need to have like a good mentor, a good foundation of things to study from in order to achieve a greater level of success.
So, what kind of portfolios should people have prepared that says, this is what I've done in order to present it to or send it out to producers? What should be involved in that portfolio?
I would say, as many clips of your work as possible. If you're a filmmaker, maybe even if you can't send them an entire feature film, you send them like your best short films, send them trailers or clips of your best scenes to kind of show what you can do with a camera or what you do editing or directing a performance, and package that, have a resume, and just really you just got to be able to package it in a way where you can sell yourself, but sell it visually. So it's not just reading a lot of text, saying, oh, okay, this is somebody that's got such and such, but they want to know who the person is behind all that. So you got to find those ways to inject your personality through whatever kind of portfolio that you put out there through visual aids and, anything like that.
Okay, which is very helpful because a lot of times people don't know what producers are looking for. They think, oh, I want to put this in there and I want to put that in there, and it may not be enough or it's not what y'all are looking for. So
Right.
thank you for that. Um, Short films. What, for certain people out there, what's the difference between a short film and a regular film?
Short film is any movie that's under 30 minutes. And that, usually they would count like a music video as a short film or even a commercial as a short film. And usually, they don't really get big distribution. It's kind of changed now with certain outlets, but usually short films are designed for film festivals, of course, people trying to find jobs, get exposure, and even sometimes little TV pilots that they're trying to get sold to a network would kind of be considered a short. And in feature films, typically it's anything over 70 minutes long. That is usually considered an hour and a half picture that's definitely going to be out for theatrical release or for like Netflix or Hulu. That's like a regular movie that you would normally go pay to see.
Okay, and since you mentioned it, festivals. you have, I know for a fact, the Black film festivals. Are there like better festivals than others? Should a person trying to get into the field try to I guess apply or be involved in all types of festivals? How really does that work?
So I I could tell you from the experience I've had from the number of festivals that I've been to over the years that really what's good is that sites like Film Freeway have like the reviews from filmmakers of which festivals are good to go to, which ones are not so legit. You basically want to find the ones that, first of all, have been around a long time, that could attract named talent to come out, whether they're presenting their work or they're like guest judges or guest hosts for different panel discussions. You want to go to ones that obviously give you a good learning experience, that give you great opportunity to network with other filmmakers and people in the industry that help you along in your journey. And definitely, if you could get into like the brand names like Tribeca or Sundance or Toronto Film Festival, then you're likely to have your work get seen by the major studios, the major film producers. And if you can win something and get an agent involved, that's even better. But yeah, it's really a whole process. And I know it's discouraging when it comes to like paying the entry fees, and if you don't get accepted you don't get that money back. So I know that kind of discouraged me in the beginning until I just said, you know what, I'm just going to go all out. But then I realized that some of those festivals are not as legit as the ones where I've had the most success with. So I try to be mindful now with like, okay, if I got this particular movie, I want to put it in a place where I know, first of all, I'm going to get a good screening time that's going to guarantee an audience. And if it's something that has talent involved that I know would be open to checking it out and maybe be able to get a connection there that could help me along.
So, with that being said, would an agent help define which ones you need to be in, or is it best because of the I guess the income to just say I'm going to represent myself and this way I can do the research on my own?
Well, the agents will definitely have a good sense of where you need to go for a fact, but you can do your own due diligence. You can talk to other filmmakers online, get their views about, how's this festival? Is it worth the money to enter into? And they'll tell you straight out. I mean, if it is or if it isn't. So, it's not really a hard thing to do. You just have to figure out, what are you willing to spend and kind of like manage a budget on every deadline that comes about, because obviously they get more expensive as deadlines pass. So you want to be mindful of that, as well as making sure it's worthwhile to enter into it, because if you do get accepted you want to go. So you don't want to really like take a chance on something that's out in Europe and you don't have the money to go out there. But you do want to go someplace where you can say, okay, I can reach this place if it's out in California or if it's in New York, and I could drive there, I could fly there, and not have to break the bank. Absolutely, take the chance if it's worthwhile to get your work seen.
Okay, so are there like, I know for all different other types of careers and paths and crafts, they have like different, I guess, organizations or memberships that will help get your name out there. Is that available for people trying to break off into this area as well?
You do have like these specialized organizations, and you do have different groups that tend to hire the same filmmakers to do
Right.
commercials or to do music videos, like basically these filmmaking agencies that are out there. And I've been looking into that myself to see if I could get involved in one of those. It's not easy to do, but if you could get one of those kind of jobs, they definitely will push you into the higher bracket type of work that gets seen nationally. So yeah, there are like agencies out there that could certainly do that for you. And of course, as an actor, if you get yourself involved with a particular acting troupe or a certain kind of talent agency that gets frequent work on major television shows and movies, they certainly help a long way too.
Okay. So is it easy? Because I know for several of the people that I know, it's not easy, which is why I'm asking this question. How easy or not easy is it to get in contact with producers? I mean, should a person look for trying to contact a producer or try and go through an actor that they know? What advice would you give as far as that's concerned? Or how?
Well, to get Yeah, I mean, to get to like a major producer like Kevin Feige with Marvel or Jerry Bruckheimer, you definitely need to get like a legit agent that could get you in the door. That just
Mhm.
it kind of goes without saying. Like, for example, I had a friend of mine who had a Western script many years ago, and he was friends with Russell Crowe's costume designer, and supposedly made a connection to him to try to get to Ron Howard to try to get his script sold, but Ron wouldn't look at it unless he got an agent. So 'cause it's just the way that these guys operate. So that's usually like the legit way to do it. Other times you just have to be lucky to be in the right circles, get around the right people, and say, well, just check this thing out, and let's not even talk about the agent thing right now. And if you're lucky to get that, great. But it's really not as simple as it looks. So yeah, it's definitely difficult.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, I mean, I think with anything, it's who you know.
Yeah,
You can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't know those right people, then it's very hard to make those connections. So it's like put your name out there, put what you do out there, and eventually you're gonna run across somebody that says, you know what, I like that kid, I like that lady, I like that guy,
right,
and see what you have instead. So, but yeah, that's good advice. Because once again, it's hard to try to contact people or get a hold of people, especially if you're not in their circle.
right. And it's hard to stand out too when you know that there's like probably 8 million other people trying to do the same thing, write query letters to say, hey, can you help me out with my thing? And they can't look at it as much as maybe they might want to. So you just have to have that luck to get to somebody that can cut through the middleman and say, hey, check this guy out. Sometimes you get lucky. I mean, sometimes people now will put something up on YouTube that gets a lot of views, and then suddenly some famous filmmaker looks at it and says, hey, I want to hire this guy. You never know. The world is kind of weird like that.
Yeah, especially in the time that we're living in right now, you have no clue of who's watching, who's doing
Yeah,
what, and they throw it out there, and it's like, wow, instant sensation, just like the singing surgeon. Like, who knew? You're a surgeon, for God's sake, and now you're a famous singer. So it's like,
right.
I was on Masked Singer the other night too. I mean, just you're in the right spot at the right time doing the right thing, somebody will show up. So
Exactly.
kind of weird. What about plays? Have you ever like decide, you know what, I'm trying to do a play or I want to be in a play and kind of ditch the big screen?
Um, that's been a thing for me too. Like I think I would be open to writing a play at some point because I've had ideas that I thought could work for like a musical or like a straight drama. In terms of acting, I don't think I would tackle that because I don't know if I could play that same character every night and have to say the same lines and not change it up. I like the flexibility of performing on film where you have a lot more freedom to play your role as you see it. But I admire any actor that can pull it off, and I certainly have friends in the theater world that I certainly support financially as well as just as a fan. So sometimes there's actually a few people now that I might actually do a little bit of collaboration with, but nothing I'm ready to announce yet. Maybe just something down the line when this pandemic passes us.
Yeah, that's true. Because right now everyone has to spread out. You may not have anyone show up at the theater. So,
Yeah.
like, no, I don't think so. We could do it on screen on Zoom and then clap, and that's about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, just plays are just so unique. Like you said, you have to do the same thing, say the same information,
Right.
and it's live. It's like, okay, well, the audience won't know that you messed up, but everybody else will.
Yeah.
So that's the, and it's not a retake, like, cut. No, you just keep rolling
Yeah. No, you
through.
gotta keep going.
Exactly. So yeah, that takes a very unique skill, I think. Like you said, there's no do-overs. You did it right or you did it wrong, and you're gonna do it again in the next 6 hours. So it
Right.
is kind of weird, very, very weird. So I think pretty much, like I said, in looking at the extensive list of information that you've bottled up and packaged it. It's amazing. And for the viewers and listeners who haven't had a chance to see your work or get a glimpse of who Andre Joseph is, how can they see you? How can they contact you? Well, not contact you, but get a hold of your work.
So a lot of my movies right now, they're up on Amazon Prime. Some of them are on DVD if you want to go on Amazon and order them now. Also on Vimeo on demand, I have a number of my older films up there that you can stream for like $1.99 if you want to rent it for a week, or if you want to buy it or watch it anytime. Um, and then basically all the updates about my films and where you can find them, you can just go to my website, ajepyxproductions.com. And you could also follow me on Twitter and Instagram at ajepyx.
Okay, so that's your handle. So it's not
Yes.
under Andre Joseph. It's under what you just said.
Yeah. Well, I have Andre Joseph on Facebook, but I
Okay.
mean, that's usually where you'll find most of my updated stuff.
Okay, so it's AJEPYX1.
Yeah, AJ Epics.
Okay. Oh yeah, that is like that, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so it's AJ Epics. There you go. Who knew? I'm sorry. That makes sense. But so you have your own production company. Is it AJ Epics as well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Can people apply to your production information, or once again, do they go the same route that we've been talking about, or?
Yeah, they could contact me directly at ajepyx1@gmail.com. I have one intern right now that's helping me out with a number of projects that we're trying to develop. So, we're always looking for people that are willing to want to get experience in front of the camera, behind the camera, and to build their resume. So we're certainly open to anybody that's available and wants to, learn the process. And certainly we need all the help we could get with these next couple of projects when things calm down. So yeah, I mean, I'm definitely reachable.
Okay. And once again, don't bombard people. Don't bombard him with a bunch of
Yeah.
crap. These are for serious inquiries only, not a
Yes.
bunch of mess. Because once you already heard him say that you may not get a chance to look at it or see it or view it. So it's a hit and miss, hit and miss. So there you go. But well, as we wrap it up, I want to say thank you, Mr. Joseph, for coming on the show, the More TV Network for Spotlight, and sharing your information and your wealth of knowledge with the viewers and listeners. So we really appreciate that. So it's getting late. Thank you for taking time out of your day, or I should say evening, to meet with us. And just have a blessed weekend and mask up and be safe,
You too.
especially
Thank
during
you so
the
much.
war. Exactly. So, exactly. So, once again, thank you. For the rest of you, don't forget to come back onto Spotlight on More TV Network. Once again, I'm your host, Colette Martin. Thank you, Andre. Thank you all for viewing and listening in, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.